but what I was losing was
Was yourself.
relationships. Yeah, and because I didn't know, and then I wake up out of this haze, and I'm like, what happened? And before my last hard drive crashed, I was finding 3 years of pictures I didn't even know I had taken, and it's like I just popped up in somebody else's body, and I had to
That's how I was like when I was on my Adderall.
It's a really great example. Actually, it's Adderall because well, now see, I just can't get too personal about who I know is on Adderall, but she also faced the same kind of thing, and it was the quick fix. Everything's a disease. I mean, I'm not saying autism isn't an affliction. I'm not saying Down syndrome is not an affliction, but I wonder sometimes if some of these things are actually a part of evolution, because if everybody had the demeanor that everyone I have ever known that has Down syndrome, the world would be a beautiful place.
Well, the thing with that is you are right. But the whole thing that would make autism is the fact that the individual with autism cannot handle what they were put on this planet to do. It's like they cannot contain the higher being that they are, because they are coming in waves, which are the indigos, the crystals, and the rainbow children. And the crystals are these autistic kids. Now, these kids are very sensitive, so you shoot them up with a bunch of drugs, they get a whole bunch of heavy metals in them, and their body cannot grow to compensate the spirit that is within.
That reminds
But
me.
it can also be reversed.
That reminds me. You said recently you came across something that would remove the heavy metals from the body.
Yes, there's a lot. There's spirulina, Hawaiian spirulina will set the first wave of detox in motion. Garlic does it. Fenugreek does it. Fenugreek is especially good for the liver. And a lot of the foods that we eat that are genetically modified organisms, they attack the liver, the thyroid, the breasts, and the gonads.
Yeah, because and of course the immediate that pops up is Monsanto, which there are a lot of countries. It was a couple years ago. A lot of countries actually began banning Monsanto seeds because they were modified to not. I mean, being in Kentucky, tobacco was the industry. I mean, it was the industry, and what you do, or what anybody who's sown any crop, your crop produces its own seed and you replant. Now, I'm not saying tobacco works exactly that way, nowadays, but when you plant a crop and you cannot take the seed of that crop and keep the generations going, their thing was, well, you buy this seed for your crop, and then the next year you have to buy again. Because
it's illegal to replant the seeds of GMO crops.
I'm sorry, say that again?
It is actually illegal to replant the seeds of GMO crops. They go and collect from farmers if it's not a seedless crop that's being grown.
I had no idea about that.
Yes, there's a documentary that used to be on Netflix. It's all centered around GMOs. It's called GMO OMG. And they talk about that. This guy tracks down Monsanto, gets him on the phone and everything, only to find out. He goes and interviews the farmers, and the farmers told him that.
Yeah, and the pictures of the Monsanto workers that are spraying stuff on food. I mean, and they're in these...
Yeah, it's the glyphosate, man.
Yeah, they're in these hazmat suits. I mean, they say, oh, it's because of the concentration of the chemicals, but why? How has humanity? I mean, the other day I came across an article that talks about an underwater city that is possibly, it's about 5 miles long, and they date it to about 350,000 years ago. How can you get, if humanity is here for 350,000 years at least, or let's say even 6,000 if you want to be completely Christian, how can you get 6,000 years of people, and all of a sudden, in the past 80 years, we need to start spraying shit on our food like crazy?
You know what I think it is? I think it's part of covering up the famine. There's a famine that's going on, and nobody wants to talk about it. And in order to feed everybody on Earth, and also have them be very docile and dumb, they have to start planting GMOs. I really believe that there's a severe famine going on, and nobody is talking about it.
You know, if you were on Verizon, because I'm on Verizon, you know that, right? And you know that
Mm-hmm.
I just went from prepaid to contract so that I can get this unlimited data. But in doing so, I can actually add like $10 to my bill and gift data to other people at $10 a gig. If I had that, if I had the money, I'm broke as hell. If I had that and you were on Verizon, I would so say you need to see Interstellar. Because you talked about the utmost, that love is the all of all. And once you see through the plot, once you see through, you've mentioned so many things that if there was a moment that you need to see Interstellar, it would be now.
Yes.
Because Einstein had a theory about love too. And he said love is the only force that will transcend gravity. It will transcend space and time. It is the only force that is unwavering. And
If it's not love, it will fail.
yeah, well, and see, you hit on a lot of well, with love, how can you not hit a personal note there? You know, if it's not love, it will fail. But then you have to define what success is too. You know, what defines success in
Success is
love?
perfect love. Success is also relative. It's on that sliding scale.
Well, see, this is why I love you, Megan, because you actually elevate my entire conscience to a different level. You're that seed for me, you know. You absolutely are.
I'm
But yeah,
glad to be.
well, it's an awakening, and now that I see it in myself, I can see it in others too. And the hard part is when you're around people that you don't see it in, and they're too caught up in status quo. They're too caught up in the monetary value of things. You know,
Yes.
they became a
It's
slave to
really
the.
sad.
It is. It's the exact slave they wanted to create.
And they're dead inside. You can tell because they don't. It's just go to work, come home, go to sleep. Go to work, come home, go to sleep.
Yeah, there has to be
My uncle is in his 80s and he is still working every day. No retirement in sight.
Well, it's when you quit. That's when, they say the Alzheimer's begins to kick in. When you
Hmm.
decide not to keep your mind active. When you keep when you stop, losing your well, in a way, a routine, you know, um, of feeling needed. Once you if you acknowledge you're a burden on society, you become that very thing. In a way, I mean, I'm talking about the monetary system. I'm talking about this, yeah, and my skin's as white as anybody's, but there's a white way of being, and you know what I mean. It's not because when I lived at Leech Lake, I tell you, if we were hungry, I mean, you can go out on the lake and you harvest wild rice. You literally take a canoe out on the water and you collect wild rice, and then you parch it, and then you cook with it, and I mean, you're not hungry. And when we were, I mean, we didn't need money to live there. Everything, a barter system was very active at Leech Lake. I mean, you did things
Yeah.
because you were a part of a community. And as white as my skin is, as much as that is still my family back there, you're still white because people look at the surface. Doesn't matter what your blood
Yeah.
is. It doesn't matter any of that. But once you lose your role as a provider, that's when the Alzheimer's sets in. That's when the when you're no longer a cog in a machine. Well, we're always going to be cogs in the machine. But it's like insurance companies are making money on me because I don't have the money to afford the kind of insurance. So I go over there and I get prescriptions for whatever. It's costing me $1, but the pharmaceutical industry is still making cost. You know?
Mm.
Yeah, I know. I went up 3 different tangents there, but
But
the
one day we're going to have to do a show on anti-pharma.
on what?
like anti-pharma episode. Like, I have all these cures and shit that will make you better, and they're probably in your backyard.
Exactly. And that is what the pharmaceutical industry does not want us to know. Because when I first got married, I had a long period of migraines. And my wife goes outside and she comes back in with this tree bark. And she goes in the kitchen, she crushes it all up, and she puts it in this little tea ball, and steeps it in water, puts some honey in there. And I did not have, and that was 11 years ago, and technically I've had headaches, but I've never had another migraine since then. And
That's crazy.
and I don't even know what tree she went to. I don't even know what kind of tree it was. And we found a.
Jimmy, I'm going to take a small 5-minute break.
You do that. You do that. I'm gonna. You know what? I got a clip to play. Actually, guess what, babe? We got a sponsor now.
Oh, for real?
Yes, we do. And I'm gonna play that. Then I'm just gonna do some bumper music or maybe a clip from the Little London Attack episode. And yeah, you do that, and then you'll be back.
Okay.
All right, later, hon. Wow, so Megan, see, an entire world of knowledge that girl is, an absolute. But yeah, we were talking a little bit about the London attack and how it's that false flag incident to keep people in fear. And because I'll tell you what, let me play this clip. This is what the last I've heard that they said has happened today.
We want to take you now back to London. This is Scotland Yard briefing on the attack in London today.
And the Met responded in line with our plans for a marauding terrorist attack. That response included uniformed and specialist firearms officers. We now, of course, have an ongoing operation, and whilst we currently believe there was only one attacker, I'm sure the public will understand us taking every precaution in locking down and searching the area as thoroughly and exhaustively as possible. And I know that the officials working within Parliament and public in the area completely understand the need to do this, and I thank them for their patience and their support. This investigation has the full weight and expertise of the Counter-Terrorism Command behind it. And if there are people who saw the events unfold today but haven't yet spoken to us, I would urge them to get in touch. A crime scene will remain in place in the affected areas in Westminster, and it will understand it's vital we carry out a painstaking investigation to recover all the possible evidence. Looking forward, throughout the rest of the day, including when people are commuting home, and indeed over the days that follow, the people of London will see extra police officers armed and unarmed on our streets. This includes our officers working longer hours and extra shifts alongside our colleagues from British Transport Police in the City of London. And of course, as you're aware, we can call on the support of the military should we need to at a future point. We are also in the process of opening up our Casualty Bureau to help those people who are worried about friends and family who may have been caught up in the attack. Furthermore, we're reaching out to communities and community leaders across London to reassure them. Our strength as a city depends on our ability to stand together at such terrible times. If anyone sees anything suspicious or anything that causes concern, please do contact us, don't hesitate. My thoughts are with all those who have been affected by today's attack, and as a service, we've lost one of our own as he acted to protect the public and his colleagues. This is a day we planned for, but we hope would never happen. Sadly, it's now a reality. We will continue to do all we can to protect the people of London.
So that little bit of a clip. And as you heard Megan say that the concept of making sure people stay in fear of everything's a terrorist attack or a potential. Now when we hear of a shooting at an airport, even when this guy went to Florida and shot at people at the airport, his claim, and this is going to be the source of the MK Ultra show, that we had an amazing amount of technical issues. Still haven't quite figured out what happened, but I mean, not only could I not get a connection that night, but my awesome Logitech headset, which was a great headset, just literally fried. I mean, it's almost like a field was just over top of everything. And I know we're going to get back, and we'll get